Daniel Cormier, live on Ringside Report Radio. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Just finished up a good cardio session.
Excellent. And a big fight January 12th for you for Strikeforce. We all saw it coming, right? But the news yesterday breaking that officially January 12th, the last Strikeforce show. Any sadness for you as a Strikeforce Grand Prix winner to see it all come to an end?
Well, not only the Strikeforce Grand Prix winner, but a guy that spent the vast majority of my career in Strikeforce. If you can really look back, my very first fight was in Strikeforce. So I'm one of the myself with Tyron Woodley and Luke Rockhold. We were the guys. We're guys that were from the ground up in that organization. So there is quite a bit of sadness to see it go, because I really do believe there was still a place for Strikeforce.
Yeah, most definitely. But are you still, at the same time, maybe disappointed that Strikeforce is going away, but excited at what lies ahead for you in the UFC? I mean, a lot of opportunities and the big stage of the UFC, right?
I am excited about what's going to happen in the UFC, but I guess selfishly, I was going to the UFC regardless.
Yeah.
But I thought there was still a place for Strikeforce, being that they were going to get rid of the heavyweight division and keep some other guys. I think they should have kind of used it as a developmental league.
I don't disagree with you on that one. I think that would have been a smart move, considering that there are a lot of fighters that get the opportunity to be on a big stage in Strikeforce, but aren't necessarily ready for the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, I think guys can actually be built up in there. It doesn't take anything away from it. I think you can. You get guys that get to be on TV, fight tough competition, and Showtime does a good job of actually marketing and promoting these guys. So there was a time, where good rather than being on an undercard in the UFC and hoping that some fights end fast and then you get on TV or something.
Yeah, you definitely do have, guys, like you who were able to kind of grow in Strikeforce. I mean, if you were brought in earlier in your career into the UFC, how do you think it would have gone for you?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty confident in myself, and if I was one of the lucky guys, man. When you go back and look at my my career, you see a lot of the guys I fought early in Strikeforce, they weren't even in the organization anymore after we fought. So basically they were brought in, to kind of help me move forward in my career. As when you look back at Kane's, the UFC did the same thing with him, from his earlier fights. If you look at those guys, I think Kane was probably one or only two fights in the UFC before those guys were gone. So I think if they would have took that same approach to building me from the very beginning like Strikeforce did, then I think I would be okay. But if I was actually fed to the Sharks right away, there's a good chance I probably would have failed.
Why do you think some guys are fed to the Sharks and some guys like you and Kane were able to get built? Is it preferential treatment? Why do you think that was happening to you and Kane?
I don't know. I think it's our management team does a good job of explaining to them what they have. This guy's really raw. I mean, they could not get Kane fights. I mean, Kane went to the UFC with only 2 fights. So it would have been very unfair of them to actually make him fight anybody above his head in the very beginning. Then with me, Bob Cook and Dwayne Zinkin, they did a good job of explaining the Coker. Yeah, he's a good wrestler, but he has no striking experience. He has no experience in the cage. So we need to build him. And, we can promise you that in time you'll have a guy that actually has the potential to be a star, but you have to be willing to work as we're asking you to do. And I think that's basically what it boils down to. And also understanding that you cannot get paid the big dollars whenever a company's investing with you. You got to be willing to actually take a little bit less to get built.
Yeah. And, you talked about, obviously, your wrestling background, but the striking was something that you had to learn and kind of came over time. Now you're striking obviously very good, getting a lot of knockouts and knocking out some top-level competition. Do you look at Dion Staring on January the 12th as a test for your striking, being that, he's a Dutch kickboxer, he's coming out of that Golden Glory camp, and, he's got good striking ability?
Well, I mean, it can be, it can be a test if I choose to make it that. I'm not a guy that's actually with a big ego, so I'm not going to go in there and try to prove that I can out kickbox a guy that's been kickboxing for 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, obviously all the fights are standing, and I think I can stand with anyone. But I think in this fight, it would be to my advantage to use my huge advantage, and that's the wrestling.
No doubt. And what do you think about Dion Staring as an opponent? Obviously, you had a big-time, big-name opponent, Frank Mir, scheduled to fight you. Mir got hurt. That fight got canceled, and now Dion Staring comes in. And, a lot of people were wondering, who is Dion Staring? Were you wondering the same thing?
Well, I was actually lucky enough to know who he was because McKough was supposed to fight him at the September 29th Strikeforce.
Oh, okay.
And being that I work with Mike on his wrestling and everything, I was able to watch some video on him to try and help Mike put together a game plan. So I knew who the guy was based on that, but on nothing else. I didn't know who he was just off of his name. I knew who he was because I was able to put him together with Mike. And that's pretty much how it was. And now, I mean, I know everything about him.
And what do you think?
I think he's very durable. I think he's very tough. Dion's been in some fights with some a couple bigger name guys. He fought Little Nog back in the day, and he lost by submission, but I think it might have been in the third round or something. So he was in there for a while. And he's fought the guy from Bellator that fought Cole Conrad for the belt twice. So he's fought some tough guys, and he gets in there and he always brings the fight. He's a very, very durable guy. I don't think I've ever seen him get stopped on punches or TKO'd. I usually see if he loses, a lot of times it's been by submission. He's a tough guy, man. He's a military guy, and he's just a very, very durable veteran that brings the fight every time. It's going to be very hard for me.
Were you surprised at the matchup?
A little, because as time passed, after the Frank Mir fight got canceled, names started arriving that they had been offered the fight. Matt Mitrione had been offered it. Frank Mir, obviously, and then Czech Congo. So, with that being said, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to still get a UFC guy to fight in Strikeforce, and that would have been good. But then, when they told me it was Dion, I was under the impression that all these guys turned the fight down, obviously, so they probably offered it to Dion, and he took it right away. And that's what really makes him dangerous. A guy that's saying, I'll take the opportunity of a lifetime. Why not? That's exactly how I looked at the Bigfoot Silva fight, and look at what it did for me.
Yeah, so you don't see this guy as a guy being brought in, and then maybe we won't see him being brought over to the UFC. You see this guy as someone that's going to be tough and give you a tough fight, and maybe we'll see more of him going over to the UFC with you.
Yeah, I think he's going to be around for a while. This is a guy that they offered him the fight, and he jumped right on it. He never said, well, maybe, I'm not sure. Hey, Dion, we have a fight for you. Daniel Cormier needs an opponent. Okay, let's fight. So anytime you get a person like that, they're very dangerous. So Dion's going to be a very hard fight for me.